So this isn't the original radio that came in the Crown Victoria. This is one I got off of eBay. Originally, I had a factory radio that came with this car, but it didn't come. It didn't have the cassette here. It was very basic. Probably had 6 buttons like this for radio stations, that type of thing. And I wish I would have kept that radio, but instead, at the time, early 2000, I just upgraded it. That radio got stolen. Then I got this radio. Then I upgraded it again to something else, and that radio got stolen, so I put this back in. I believe that's the order now. It's been so many. So this will be probably the 5th different radio that's been in this car. This one, it has a cassette. I wish the cassette worked. It worked for I don't know, maybe 4 tapes and then stopped working, and cassette stopped in there. There are a lot of things I like about this radio, but one thing, it doesn't have a clock, and obviously when I need a place to put a monitor for a backup camera, this is kind of the natural choice. You can't actually get rear view mirrors that have a backup camera that allow you to see an image in the back of the mirror. But I thought that'd be kind of cumbersome to kind of wire 2 different things anyways. And the other thing is we want Bluetooth in this car to make it easier to interface with our phone. So this radio's got to come out. You saw the Boss Audio one that I'm going to replace it with. Now you can see here, it kind of looks like double DIN, but it's not. It's a 1.5 DIN. And when I remove it out of the dash, you'll see why this particular year vehicle is kind of unusual. I don't know why they did it the way they did, but in any case, what I'm doing here right now, though, is I want to confirm this information I have from all data, because it didn't quite match up what I thought it would. I'm looking at basically the color. This is a wiring harness for the radio, and I'm trying to figure out the colors match what I expect. So what you'll need, along with that wiring diagram, you'll need something like this. And these I got from Crutchfield way back in the day, probably that first radio I put in. But you can also just stick nails, and what you'll see here, there's 2 holes. I don't know, maybe about 1.5 inches apart, one on either side. And all we're doing is we're releasing the latch that's in there. Like I said, you can even stick nails in there. You gotta just be careful, you're not gonna hurt anything, and then find a way to remove that. So I don't know, I might even be able to yeah, there's a little snap there. I might be able just to pull it out by the tape deck. I think I'm gonna have to set this down. You'll be able to see now how kind of goofy this radio is. For these years, I think at 98 is the first year that you don't have this kind of step down here, but it's a 1.5 DIN step down into a 1 DIN, or single DIN. And that also means the space behind it is basically the same. So you can't get a double DIN in there even if you wanted to, without really hacking it up, and that's not in my interest. So that's why I went with the single DIN. But let's take a look at let's do a couple different things. We'll look at the wiring here. Compare. So what I'm going to look at is the colors and see if they match what I have here in this diagram. And if they do, then I can use this to wire against the radios, the extra harness that I have that goes into the new radio. I'll be able to wire it on the bench over there. And then everything should just plug in. I'll probably run some tests, but first I'm going to just do some comparison here with these 2 plugs that we have on the back. So yeah, I went ahead and verified this wiring diagram that I got from All Data. I wasn't sure because there's two actually radios for this year. There's the amplified version, and then there's this unamplified version. Of course, this is like a police interceptor, so it's pretty basic. And I just wanted to make sure that this wiring diagram matched up. So the nice thing about this diagram is that the wires themselves are actually, I'll show here, they're actually numbered. I don't know if I can see here, but this is like 1 and 2 for one speaker. On the side, the power. What's interesting is they're not in order here, but if you do not only look at the colors here, like we have black, or we have black with light green, if you do compare not only colors but the pinout as well, like on this particular one, this is for like power and accessory instrumentation. If you compare the pinout, if we look at the back side here, it matches the documentation I have. So that's one thing I also wanted to double check, because that's important, because I'm going to be using these adapters, these little connectors, to connect to the actual new amp. Let's see if I can find, here's the kit number here. Looks like Scosche car stereo harness FD02B. This is a 1997 Crown Victoria P71. So this not only comes with the speaker connector right here, which I also verified the pinout, and not only that, it matches color wise, but also you can see this one is for as well. But I should be able to use this with minimum fuss, verifying that the pinout as well matches and connect. So that all I need to do now is take these to the bench over there, and the harness that comes with the radio, wire it up according to the wiring diagram I have, and then it should just plug in, and I should be able to test it and then fit it with minimal fuss. Of course, the other part of this is that I'll have to wire the backup camera. For now, I'm just going to start with the radio, make sure the radio works okay, and then I'll get to actually wiring the camera. Okay, I finished up the rewiring with the female harness that'll go into the car. You notice I tied back the wires I wasn't going to use. I thought about actually taking this thing apart to remove those wires, but there could be a time when maybe I replace that radio with something that just require this, and then I'd be like, either have to get a whole new harness, or I'd have to find those wires or something like that. So I just tied them back, taped over the ends, and if I need to, I could probably use it. But really the only one that the car has right now is wired for is the illumination changes, or like the dimmer, and these last two ones for the antenna are actually, I don't think they're actually wired in the car. So really I'm only talking about 3 different wires here, and yes, I'm using crimp connectors. I don't think it's a big deal. There's a long discussions about crimping, that type of thing, but for this I don't think it's a big deal. So I'm ready to actually try it in the car. I've gone ahead and plugged in the gray connector with my connections made up here. At least just the power connection. I haven't actually wired the speakers yet, but I'll go ahead and then test this now to see if I can if it works. So I'm just going to put it to accessory. There. The interesting thing about this radio is that it seems to take a while to actually boot up, I guess you could say. But it does power on. Now it's off. turns off after a couple of seconds, and then I'll put it to the run position, boots back up. At least the screen comes on about, I don't know, what is that, about 10 seconds later. Kind of unusual, but it looks like I got my wires working. So the next thing I'm going to try is these, as far as the watching video at the same time and just using the antenna input. And then I'll probably wire up the speakers and install the radio actually into the dash opening. So this is a short video about watching videos and the backup camera, or not the backup camera, but the parking brake input to prevent watching videos on this display, this Boss Audio unit, while you're basically driving, which is a safety concern. At first I thought that this parking brake input was probably looking for a positive input. In fact, the manual doesn't actually say what if it's positive or negative input. It just says hook it up to your parking brake. Off the top of my head, I would think that you'd want to, look for a positive input. If the parking brake light is on your dash, then you would hook it up to the positive. Maybe that's not how parking brakes are typically wired. So what I tried to do was hook it up to the antenna, auto antenna, which my car's not going to use, which has 12-volt out, and then hook it up to the parking brake. But that didn't actually work. So if I switch it to source here, and you can actually see right now on this particular Boss Audio unit what video is playing back in the background, and you can't see, you basically have this message here. So positive input to the parking brake doesn't work. However, what I've done here is hook up this test lead. What it's actually looking for is a negative. And I'm basically grounding that wire, and that message goes away. I unground it, message comes back. Now, I'm not sure if this could be just permanently grounded. That sounds like it probably would work. Or if there's some other problems. I went through the menus to see if there were issues, elsewhere, if it would prevent something with the rest of it, but I don't see any issues. So I'm probably just gonna permanently ground that wire, which of course is a safety concern. You don't want to watch videos while you're driving. But in my particular car, I don't use the parking brake. I went ahead and spliced in the speakers. I double checked all the wirings with this diagram here. Like I said, I got it all data. And confirmed the pin. You can notice I marked the number 8 pin just to orient myself here on the wiring diagram. And then confirmed that the pins, as well as not these colors, but the pins at least here match these colors here. So I can basically use this 8 and 7. That should be front left door speaker. According to this, the white ones here, it's hard to read, but they are actually labeled on there, front left. And then made sure that they match these labels, which are much easier to read: front left, positive, negative. And sure enough, all the colors match up. So if there's any doubt to the colors matching up, they should. So now I'm going to do a quick test in the car. Alright, so I've hooked up the basically clipped everything up, and the antenna that was there. And I ran through some of the menus, and everything seems to work fine. I checked the balance and the fade. That seems to be fine. One thing I did notice right off the bat is it looks like from the factory you have this annoying beep when you do anything. And I guess that could be helpful if you were kind of driving and you wanted to know if you know, you're clicking buttons, it was working, but immediately I thought that was annoying. So I guess the way to turn that off is going through the menu here, sub st beep, and switch it to off. Now you're able to, you know, basically change the bass, the volume, without that annoying beep. So that's something I'll have to pay attention to. Yeah, everything seems to work fine. Audio seems to be good. I guess the next thing, of course, will be finish, and I'll try to show that on the bench next.